My father went by Oscar, which was his nickname. He was with Company C. First thing they'll tell you is that, oh, that's the Hard Luck Company. Whenever C Company was in the front, they used to get hit. So that company took the most casualties.
My name is Kathi Hayashi, and I am the daughter of Tokuichi Hayashi. My father served in World War II in the Ōlelo Company of the 100th Infantry Battalion.
My dad is Gary Uchida, and he was with headquarters. He was S2 in intelligence gathering, and I was told by another veteran that nobody wanted that position because it was a very dangerous job. But my dad came back. He was wounded 2 months into the war, so he really didn't feel like he was part of the 100th. And then somebody told me that a lot of the men, I don't know what percentage, but a lot of the men were injured within months of landing.
My name is Mariko Miho. I am the daughter of the late Katsugo Miho, who was a member of the 522 Field Artillery of the 442 Regimental Combat Team. I got to know the 100th through my father, who counted among his closest friends many of the members of the 100th Infantry Battalion.
My grandfather was Ferret Turner, and he became, after Pearl Harbor, it took a little bit of time before the 100th was ultimately formed, and he volunteered to become their 1st Battalion commander and sailed with the men when they left Hawaii to the mainland. You know, everywhere that they went, particularly for their training, they were treated as second class, if not worse than that, citizens. And so whether it was in the community, whether it was in the command where they were, or all the way up the chain of command into Washington, D.C., he was dogged and fearless about letting them know that these men deserved the right to be soldiers in the U.S. Army and to do what every other soldier in the U.S. Army was doing, which was defend the nation and fight for the freedom of the world.
Two things I think that really comes to mind that my dad had told me when I was young and kind of impressed. The first is that education can never be taken away from you. What you learn is always yours. The second is your strength is in your friends. And so your friends is actually your strength. And those things have always stuck with me.
One is giri. And giri is a sense of duty and obligation to another. And it's usually the debt of obligation due to what someone else did for us. The other one that I got from my father and his siblings and my grandfather was ninjo. It's often in conflict with giri because ninjo deals with human emotions. The emotions that rise in your heart, the emotions that come and propels you forward, and you can't stop it because it's something that you must do. That ninjo is expansive. But I also think that it appears when one is able to rise above the ashes. And I saw both of those values evident in my family throughout my life.
You know, when I think about my dad he grew up really poor. He was one of 5 children. His sister had to be adopted by another family because the mother couldn't afford to feed all of them. And yet he made something of himself despite the discrimination that the Japanese faced. And I think about how people now are faced discrimination and how they might be considered second-class citizens, and maybe to encourage them that the Nisei were also at one time that way, and to encourage them to continue working hard.
He was a very unique person, and I learned a lot about him because he believed that we should do what's right. It doesn't matter who's right. You have to go with what you have in your heart and do what is right.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces
These were very shocking times for Japanese Americans in Hawaii. There was so much uncertainty, like what's going to happen to us? We look like the enemy. What are they going to do to us? As I mentioned, my father was by Makapu, guarding the shorelines, but immediately they were asked to report to Schofield Barracks. And at that time, this multicultural unit called the Hawaii National Guard with all different nationalities were at Schofield, and the Japanese Americans were pulled out from the unit and set up into a 100th Provisional Unit to be watched and scrutinized because they looked like the enemy. These were the first Japanese Americans that were sent to camp, but they didn't even know. When they got on the boat, they didn't even know where they were going. Nobody told them. They couldn't tell their families. They couldn't say goodbye to anybody. There was no fanfare. There was no leis thrown in the ocean to say goodbye. It was very, very, very sad.
The history of the 100 and those men is from that period. They started with 1432. When they went to combat, they went with a little less than 1,400. After Monte Cassino, there was a little over 500 left. So we're looking about 800 to 900 that were either wounded or got killed. They deserve to be remembered for what they did.
Imagine the environment when some of the Japanese Americans are put into internment camps, and some of them are being sent halfway around the world to Europe to fight for your country. So it took a lot of inner grit, in spite of all this discrimination, to go off to war and said, we're going to prove to these people, these Americans that don't trust us, we're going to prove to them that we are Americans. We're born in America, and we're going to fight for America. We're going to prove, and they did, because they were the most decorated in U.S. military history. They lost so many lives in pursuit of freedom and in pursuit of America's values. And these men are the ones that are called the Purple Heart Battalion. And it all started right here in Hawaii, our Hawaii heroes.
Physical stature is one thing. The stature of how one carries oneself is a completely different thing. And these men, though they were of Japanese ancestry, they were also men who grew up in Hawaii. Grew up in a place that was imbued with an aloha spirit, grew up in a place in which there was just this plethora of activity. I'm struck when I see the pictures of these men and how many of these Japanese men are carrying ukuleles. And so I think part of what my grandfather did was he maintained that sense of pride of who they were. And it was who they were not only as the descendant of their own ancestors, racial descendants, but also the folks that were representing these islands.
This hall right here is called Turner Hall, and it's in honor of Colonel Farrant Turner, but he is the most revered man because he was the first commander of the 100th Infantry Battalion. And he told the men at that time, take $2 out of your $30 a month paycheck, and we're gonna collect it. And when we come back to Honolulu, we're gonna build a clubhouse where everybody can gather and talk story. And for the ones that don't make it, it's the responsibility of this organization to honor these men, to perpetuate their legacy, and to take care of their families.
Couldn't sleep last night. Part of it was thinking about this, and I went on to the 100th page, and there is this treasure trove of all these letters that were written to my grandfather. Sorry. These letters written to him by the men that he was privileged to serve with. And what is interesting throughout all those letters, one is the drive for this space, to create this space, a place for them to be able to gather together. And in the first year they had, this is 1943, 44, on a GI salary, they had raised like $30,000 already. So part of it was that drive, but the other was just this constant sense of, when we get home, here's what we will do. Many of them took advantage of the GI Bill. They went off to college. They got education that a generation before would not have been available to them. They came back to Hawaii and they entered into the community in professions in which the primary focus of those professions was the service of others.
They were faced with this huge problem, which was their clubhouse was about to be given to a mainland-based organization. They were besides themselves. They didn't know what to do.
The clubhouse brings back a lot of memories, but I think the clubhouse should be used to sustain the values and the spirit of the men.
We felt in order to re-energize the organization that we needed to look outside the walls. We needed to focus externally and to be proud and tell the story of the 100th Infantry Battalion. So we got energized. We started the project-based learning to get students and kupuna involved. We found out it was the 80th anniversary of the formation of the 100th Infantry Battalion. We visited vets and they had tears in their eyes when we went to visit them.
I think the people that I've been talking to, we all have a heart for the 100th, and we're all sons and daughters, and we all wanted to do something to recognize the 80th. So a bunch of us were sitting around talking about what we could do. We met with the legislatures and they offered to write a resolution. Governor Ige, you know, his father and his father-in-law were both 100th. A lot of them were so appreciative. They sent us notes. And I think it's built a bridge.
They started to believe in themselves. They started to believe in the values that they were extolling, that they were revealing with the students involved with the PBL challenge. When we had, like, we say a student like Shane Kaneshiro, who uncovers the number of articles in the archives of the Pinyin newspaper, and every day there was a new obituary being published during the war years, and the gravity fell on him to finally realize so many people died who were alumni of McKinley High School. It propelled him to lobby at the legislature that year to stop the bill that would have forced the name change of McKinley High School. So as adults, and watching on the side, watching these kids being transformed by the values that they were uncovering through these individual stories, invariably it affected all of us. And I think we began to realize that these are living values.
My experience is that this generation is one of the most community-minded generations that I have seen. We went through the 80s and the 90s that seemed to be a time in which everything was very focused on what can I get out of this for myself. I look at my children, I look at those that are younger than them, and I see the very same thing of folks who look at a nation, look at a community that is not what it calls itself to be, and they are determined to use the tools that are available to them to make it the place that it is supposed to be.
I think working on this has brought a better appreciation, both for my husband and me, the value of what my dad and the veterans went through, and it meant more to honor them because of that. And it was really a privilege to honor them that way.
So with all this new energy, I'm happy to say that we received a letter from the Go for Broke National Education Center that says, this letter is to inform you that the Go for Broke National Education Center is withdrawing its proposal. So this is a perfect start for re-energizing the 100th, to have this new vision of looking externally and to bridging with mainland organizations like the Go for Broke National Education Center.
My hope and dreams for those students who wish to take on problem-based learning challenges and for those teachers who wish to bring this into the classroom. I hope that they will discover the joy of learning, the joy of making connections that they did not realize already existed before them. And that I hope that they can then take the best of who we are and move it forward for many others so that they can then do the same for their future generations. If we can harness this and appreciate who we are at every stage of our lives, I think we can be a better place for all.
The concept of gaman, the determination to persevere through hardship, and doroku, the great effort, exertion, are the inheritance of Japanese traditional virtues. The Nisei exhibited both during the first 8 weeks of combat with heavy casualties in September of 1943 near Salerno in southern Italy. The Nisei proved that they are true Americans and fought with valor. If I continue to practice gaman and doroku, I am living the legacy of the veterans who paved the way for themselves and our future. Thank you.
From island homes of sugar cane, where trade winds sang and skies would rain, they answered duty's solemn call, though doubts and fears surrounded all. Born of Issei dreams and Issei pride, they stood as warriors side by side. With gaman in their hearts aflame, they'd forge a legacy and name. One puka puka leads the way, from Haine to war's dark day. For the red, white, and blue they'd fight, proving loyalty and freedom's light. Remember Pearl Harbor, they made their stand, with courage carved in every land. One puka puka, brave and true, fighting for me, fighting for you. Their hearts were heavy, filled with honor, in secret sailed across the water. From Camp McCoy to Shelby's dirt, they trained with grit through sweat and hurt. Their letters home in quiet prose spoke honor that the Issei chose. Gambare, fight for your good name, bring honor, never bring a shame. In Italy's hills they paid the price, purple hearts for sacrifice. They bled where others held their doubt, but valor left no room for doubt. They charged through fire, they cleared the way, their silence louder than what words say. Each fallen soul a torch alight, a guide for those who still must fight. One puka puka leads the way, from Haine to war's dark day. For the red, white, and blue they'd fight, proving loyalty and freedom's light. Remember Pearl Harbor, they made their stand, with courage carved in every land. One puka puka, proud and free, they changed the course of history. They came back home to rise once more, to open wide democracy's door. In Senate halls and island schools, they lived by gaman, broke the rules. Their march lives on, their truth remains, in every fight for justice gained. So let their song rise high and bold, one puka puka, brave and gold. searching cold.